Hello, welcome to another book haul video, this time an absolutely massive one. This book haul by itself is making me consider go back to monthly book haul videos rather than quarterly, just because of how much I acquired digitally. There's, not a whole ton here physically, but like the amount of digital stuff that I picked up this month is kind of absurd. I'm hoping that I don't continue to have this problem because this video's going to be a long one, as I'm sure you can already tell looking at the bottom of the video. And that being said, there's not really any need for additional preamble here at the beginning of the video. I might as well just jump into the things that I acquired and received this quarter, I suppose, this first quarter of 2024, because it's big and I should not be wasting any more of your time. First off, I'm going to thank some of my friends for, joining up and buying me a Kindle. I wanted to get an Oasis. Oasis was silently discontinued in the United States for some reason, so I had to have some overseas friends buy one and ship it to me. Thank you for that gift. So now all of these digital purchases have somewhere to go besides just being on my phone. So again, thank you for that, but I'm going to jump now into the ARCs that I received. One of them I bought, one of them I received from someone else. Let me open this and talk about Disquiet Gods. First off, this one right here, if it will focus on the screen, because it is not for some reason. There, it doesn't have a cover on it on the actual Kindle itself for some reason. Maybe it will if I decide to try to open it. This one I did not receive from anyone, but is available for sale on Bane's website because they sell e-arcs to the general audience because they're cool that way. So obviously not quite the final version, but I will now hold on to this book, kind of dearly as one of the first books that I read digitally and was excited to read digitally, even though I tend to read physically. It's kind of a special moment there. The other arc that I received was actually the one in the middle that you probably saw there, if this will focus. It's really struggling for some reason. There we go. Murderous Fairies by Nicole Brona, which I will be reviewing here next week, actually. That will be next Tuesday, will be a review for that book. My review for Disquiet Gods actually came out, I believe, 2 weeks ago at the time that you are seeing this video. So, I got through the arcs, got reviews done. That was cool. Thank you to Nicole for providing me with that sequel to an arc that I reviewed last year, and is my favorite of the 3 covers so far, so that's fun as well. Now let's move into the gifts that I received, 3 of these being all physical. I did first receive a gift of The Dregs of Empire by Christopher Rocchio, the newest novella, even though it is a novel in its own right, for providing me. And thank you, Christopher, for providing me a personal copy, signing it as well, after I, proofread it for Anderida. So that was pretty exciting to get the print-on-demand hardcover. Pretty slick there. Directly related, speaking of Anderida and the Dregs of Empire, I did get my copy of the Dregs of Empire and Other Stories along with the big slipcase to fit the whole trilogy of novellas and other stories with these Prince of the Sword and Lotus, the Marlowe Devil, and then I actually don't know what this one's called off the top of my head, but fantastic cover, fantastic book. I'm very happy to have my my copies of these now finally after working on it so long ago. Thank you as well to Reen for gifting me the Ghost Pirates and Other Revenants of the Sea, the 3rd collection of William Hope Hodgson novel and short stories, stuff like that. This one I actually planned to buy for myself because one of the stories that I covered recently on Short Story Sundays was in this collection, and Reen decided to buy it for me instead of, actually double checking if it was still on the list or not. He just bought it instead of letting me buy it myself. So what an absolute pain in my butt he can sometimes be, but thank you for the gift regardless. Now let's move on to some of my other physical items that I acquired for myself. First off, we're going to talk about a small assortment of Cormac McCarthy books. I continue to collect his books, continue to read them despite how mixed I am on him as an author. First off, Orchard Keeper, his first novel. Not sure when I'll read it. I'm thinking I have it planned for May. Is that it? I think May might be when I'm going to get to this one. I didn't realize this one was as short as it is, but it is a bit shorter. Outer Dark, which is his second novel, which I am reading this month in April. Of course, assuming I haven't already finished it by the time this video goes up. I'm not entirely sure when the timeline for that is going to be. And then Child of God, which I think is his shortest book, really. It's like not even 200 pages, and this font is like big. So very short book this one is, and it is his third novel. I'm probably going to fit this one in randomly sometime this summer as well. Maybe it'll be in June, since I'm going to be doing these other two next, and I already own it. So that is the, small plans, I guess, there. I continue to read his books for some reason. The next couple of items I did purchase are a couple of favorites of some of my friends, these being a couple of John Williams books. No, not that John Williams, but they are Butcher's Crossing and Stoner, a couple of very highly acclaimed books amongst my friends. In relativity, I've rarely ever heard as many good things about an author at the same time as having not heard very much about an author, and there's nothing people can really specify about loving these books for the most part, especially Stoner. It's one that people love, and they can't even explain why they love it, so it's one that I'm curious to give a shot. And naturally, I have to stick these onto that TBR as a, I want to read them someday trademark type of item. Next up is an item that a couple of my friends are going to be pretty excited about, particularly Nana. That is Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell, a book that I was expecting to be a heck of a lot longer than it is. Granted, it's still 500 pages, but this was one I thought was going to be like a 1,000-page tome. But apparently, it's not. It is praised by a couple of my friends. General premise plus story structure intrigues me greatly, and I don't think I've ever heard any bad things about this book except for people who couldn't get into the general stylistic structural stuff. So anybody who's into that kind of structure for a story tends to really like it, and I'm interested in trying it myself. The next item is a little bit of a fatter hardcover than I was expecting, but just because it's a little bit shorter, this comes as recommendation from Orion. Red Rabbit by Alex Grecian, a horror western novel. Don't know much about it, just that it's western and has horror stuff in it, so that's really all I needed to get my attention, really, as when it came right down to it. I really like western vibes in books, and especially horror stuff is also usually pretty good. So this came as a recommendation from Orion, like I said, and the pitch I got was, pretty convincing. So that's why I decided to get it when it went on pretty good sale rather recently. Next up, we have finally Volume 3 of the Bedtime Stories collections, just, books that I've been collecting as transcripts essentially of the videos that this channel posts onto YouTube, and including a couple bonus stories which seem rather intriguing. So finally this third volume came out. I picked it up as soon as it became available, basically, and I'm really excited to actually read some of those bonus stories and continue on watching those videos and like reading along, because they're an entire vibe in and of themselves. Next up is an item that maybe some people aren't expecting me to have purchased myself. I got the Uzumaki by Junji Ito. I probably butchered his name. I'm sorry about that. Horror? Cool. Manga? I don't know about that yet. I haven't really tried it. So why not try this as one of my first mangas, since, it's one collection, one binding of an entire story here. And probably a good starting point just based off of my general interests, other than, some other manga that might not be as good, like starting points per se, for somebody who's not into it. I think that this one will be one that I enjoy a little bit, so that's why I picked it up. Finally, we have the last 3 items on the physical section of this haul, and they're all pretty big or rather nice copies. This first one is the collection of the Books of Earthsea, this big, complete illustrated collection with all of the books and then like some of the other material as well. And this thing is huge and also really, really nice quality. Like, I was actually shocked at the quality of the book, as well as the shipping. What this thing came shipped in was like immaculate for something coming from Amazon. So I have the feeling that like these books just come in the shipping just as is when even other retailers purchase them. So like it was pretty good, and I was really impressed by that. And for something as big and nice and thick as this is, I'm glad that somebody actually cared to do that. Next up are a couple of Folio Society books. My first couple of them. First one is going to be well, let's just back up a tiny bit and say not too long ago, a month or two ago, I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head, Folio Society had a little flash sale type thing where if you bought a book, you got a surprise book for free. So my surprise book, when I decided to buy a book, was On Photography by Susan Sontag. I cannot say I'm horribly interested in this book. I think maybe a couple people I know would be interested in it, but I think I unironically would have preferred the Book of Proverbs as my free gift. So, you know, I just kind of have this now. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with it. I'm not interested in it, quite frankly. But the one that I did buy to be able to get that free gift was The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs. I will say I'm slightly underwhelmed by it. I was expecting for there to be a little bit more like genuine artwork. There was only like one large spread and it's really good, but like the rest of the photos included are just actual photos and not artwork. So I was like a little bit underwhelmed by that. But you know, dinosaurs be cool and I wanted to pick it up, so I picked it up and I cannot wait to probably pick up Jurassic Park and the Lost World at some point, because those ones I know are pretty good, just from how many other people have gotten them. But that rounds out the physical book collection of this book haul. Let's now move into the ebooks. The first thing I'll go ahead and shout out in the ebook section was a gift actually from Patrick, which I don't know why he did this, but it was Finnegan's Wake by James Joyce. He decided to gift me a digital copy of this because I refused to put it on my physical on my physical wish list for obvious reasons. Thank you, I guess, to Patrick for gifting me this. I don't think I'm ever going to read it, so I'm sorry that I'm probably not going to touch it, but it is funny, and you know, I am grateful that you gifted it to me. Let's move on to the things that I did actually buy myself. Way too many of them. First, I did purchase The Ashes of Averin, I guess, by Thiago Abdallah. Cool covers, they're pretty cheap. You know, most of these books that I'm going to talk about in the digital section were pretty cheap because I got them on sale. So I picked these up because it's cool colors. Well, I guess colors. That first cover has great colors if you're looking at it on anything besides a Kindle. But very cool covers, and then the novella came free with the newsletter. Next up, we have the Dark Water Legacy, which I've heard a lot of great things about the Amber Blade. So I decided to pick these up when they were on sale. The next series was Empire of the Wolf, if I can find that. So the first couple books in this series, I've heard, you know, tons of great things over time about them, and I'm excited to give them a shot at some point, especially since they seem a little bit shorter as well. That's always nice. Next up was the Gunmetal God series by Zamil Akhtar. I'm probably butchering your name, I'm sorry about that. But I picked up this trilogy, and then that novella came again free with the newsletter, so I picked that up. These are cool covers, and they've been pitched as something that I feel like I would be interested in, just conceptually. Next up, we have, let's see if I can find it in my collections. I didn't think I'd have this many books to have to sift through. Saga of the Forgotten Warrior by Larry Correia. These weren't really as cheap. I didn't pick these up on sale, but kind of some hype going into them. Good grief, like, camera focus, please. There we go, I guess. These 4 books, like I said, weren't as cheap. The first book was on sale when I picked them up. The other 3 weren't, but I decided to pick them all up regardless because this is one that I want to try a little bit sooner than later. FOMO and other personal recommendations kind of have me really interested in that one. Next up, we have a bunch of miscellaneous items that are probably all going to be seen all in the same folder. The first one I picked up was one that I have actually already read. If I could get this to work on my Kindle. There we go. It is Chess Story by Stefan Zweig, one that I did already read and cover on Short Story Sundays rather recently, so there's that one. Next up is The Sword of Kaigan. I don't know if this is pronounced Sword of Kaigan or Kagan, I'm not entirely sure. But there's this standalone fantasy novel that I picked up because it was a little bit cheaper, has a pretty decent reputation amongst the friends that I have, and being standalone is always a pretty attractive concept these days, so I did pick that one up. Next is a book that Celine was very excited for me to have picked up. That is The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter, which was on sale, but actually had enough Kindle credit to be able to pick this one up technically for free. So she's been wanting me to read this for a very long time with all the other purchases, like I said, that I've been making. I had enough credit to get this one for free. No idea when I'll get to it, but it should be sooner than later now, hopefully before Celine shrivels up and dies in her disappointment. items 9 through 12 all here are Rick Riordan books, so I guess I'll just show off the collection as is here. First up was the Demigod Files and the Demigod Diaries, things that I have read before in my life, but since I'm still doing Riordan rereads, I figured I might as well check these out again too once I'm finished with Heroes of Olympus. And I recall there being a couple gems of short stories in there, so I look forward to digging into it all again. You'll also see there on the bottom left is The Son of Sobek, which is a short story crossover between Percy Jackson and Carter Kane. So, you know, the main character from the Riordan verse, so to speak, and then the Kane Chronicles as well. In Mark of Athena and House of Hades, my paperback copies of those, I have parts 2 and 3 of Demigods and Magicians, so the next 2 short stories in there. Demigods and Magicians are these 3 short stories, these crossovers. So I picked up this first one through Prime Readings, free, you know, perfect for me. Since I have those other 2, I don't have this first one through another book somehow. I surprisingly haven't read these yet either, so I'm excited to give them a try. Like I said, once I finish Heroes of Olympus, hopefully sometime this year, then you'll see Percy Jackson and the Singer of Apollo, which is another short story, but that one is from an old anthology collection that I had from middle school with the story, but I couldn't find the anthology, so I might have gotten rid of it at some point during my many-year reading drought, but the ebook was cheap, so I picked that up since it can't be found in any of the other collections or anything like that up to this point, so I picked that up separately to go along with it. And then I suppose I should also shout out that I got Cold Springs, which is another standalone that he wrote at one point. I think during the time that he was writing Train of R, I'm not entirely sure if that was like before or after he started writing Percy Jackson stuff, but one that I guess I kind of want to read because I want to read all of Riordan's stuff at one point or another. So that one was up there and I picked it up. Next up is sort of related to Rick Riordan, actually. Item number 13. I'm probably going to mispronounce this entire thing, so I apologize. Aru Shah and The End of Time by Roshani Chokshi, I think is how all of this is pronounced. Forgive me if I'm wrong there, but this is kind of part of that Rick Riordan Presents thing that he decided to do. He obviously can't study or know enough about all of the mythologies of the world to write stories in them, so he started doing a thing like this where occasionally if certain authors write stories with their mythologies in the style that he kind of does, he can and will endorse some of them, you know, as kind of a thing that he thinks like this works, like this is representing their mythology, and was not written by me, but it is my style and I think my fans would enjoy it. So I decided to pick this one up, this first book in this trilogy, I think it is, because it was on Prime, and if I want more Riordan-esque mythology fiction, I could give this as a, you know, an easy free shot at some point in the future. Next up was one that I did not expect to be picking up on Kindle. That is The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. First of the Kingsbridge books. A great sale made this irresistible, even though there's actually a specific physical set of the series that I'd actually prefer to grab at some point relatively soon, but this is one of the historical fiction stories I'm most excited to try based on general reception. I think it is a legendary book that most people just absolutely love, so I do want to try it for that reason. But the next book in this haul is one very different that, again, a great sale made it irresistible to pick up, even though it's not necessarily a book that I think I will read anytime soon, and that I have no idea how much I'm going to like it. That book is, of course, Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson, which the cover on this one is actually also really, really, really good. Part of the reason why I picked it up, even though on Kindle you don't get to see all the great colors of it. But I do think it was worth grabbing. I do kind of want to get a physical version of this one just because of the cover. But I do want to try Stephenson at some point. I think this will be a fine place to start based off of what some other people have said. So yeah, I did pick it up for those reasons, and I might get a hardcover of it at some point, like I said, just for that amazing cover. Next up is a group of 3 short story collections by Christopher Ruocchio, Tales of the Sun Eater, volumes 1 through 3. You'll see volume 3 there, and volumes 1 and 2 there. Picking these up digitally because I haven't had them digitally up to this point, and I haven't needed to, but I figured the new art was worth getting them for, even though the new art for Tales volume 2 won't be done until later this year. But besides, now I can reread these collections when I do my rereads of them next. You know, somewhere that isn't through the Anderida collection, so this might be a little bit more convenient, we'll say, in the future, which is nice. And forgive the sticky note being on the screen, there is something in the bottom right there that I can't show you yet. So that's all fine and dandy, although I guess I should actually also say that I don't know if I actually mentioned this at some other point in the video. The Fangs of Owanos as well at the very bottom there, the recent novella that somebody converted into an EPUB that I was able to get because it's free on Bane's website. So someone was able to convert it to an EPUB and I put it on there just to quickly read that. I acquired that as well. Next up is a couple books that I feel like slightly duped into purchasing. These were fine enough purchases because while they were on sale, they were pretty expensive, but like these books are really expensive anyway for some reason. William T. Vollmann's Europe Central. Again, I'm having focus issues. Europe Central there, like I said, was a fine purchase. But the Dying Grass, I feel like I slightly got duped because I didn't realize it was only one of only like 2 out of the 5 currently published volumes in that series with an ebook item. So like the books are really expensive paperback, like $30 for most of them, even the shorter ones. And only 2 of them have ebook options for whatever reason. It's a really weird thing going on with Vollmann's books, but you know, the physicals seem pretty neat, so I might actually end up rebuying that one and some of the rest of the series as paperbacks at some point in time, even though they are pretty expensive, but I did pick those up digitally anyway. Next up, we have a trilogy of Western books that I know basically nothing about, but do really want to try because they looked cool and I could get them pretty cheap. That is The Light Sublime by C.S. Humble. Is that his name? Yes, C.S. Humble. So I also have some other friends wanting to try them, so I decided to buy them and put them on a list of Westerns that I want to try at some point in the future. Not sure when, but it is on the list. Next up, following after all of the Malazan books that I purchased or rather obtained through a Humble Bundle a couple months back, several months back, I suppose I should say, I picked up the first book in Path to Ascendancy now by Ian C. Esselmont, I believe is his name, if this would focus. Dancer's Lament, the first book in the series, because that one was on sale, so I might slowly go through and pick up some of those just to have all of Malazan. I don't think I want to have all of the Malazan universe physically. I have Book of the Fallen in my mass markets over there, but I think the majority of them I do plan to read digitally because it'll be a lot easier to do it that way. I also picked up the Adan trilogy digitally because they were all like $1, I think $1 a piece, not too long ago in the middle of March. So I picked up the whole trilogy there, even though I have already read the books. If I reread, it might be convenient to have digital just in case. But then we have a pretty big item, and by big item, I mean it's technically 4 items. It is the Southern Novels collection by Robert McCammon. So you have Boy's Life, Mystery Walk, Gone South, and Usher's Passing in here. I already own Boy's Life physically, and I'll probably read it physically as well. Mystery Walk had a concept that reminds me in some ways of The Medium, the game from 2021, which I personally really enjoyed, so that seems kind of fun. Usher's Passing is a gothic historical fiction book, so I'm down for that. And then Gone South is a really strange and intricate concept that I can't even begin to describe here, but heard great things about that one as well. So I picked up these 4 books in the one collection because it was only a few bucks to get this whole collection of the 4 of them together, and I'm like, yeah, that is absolutely worth picking up, so I did it. And don't worry, we're coming up pretty close to the end here now. I did also pick up, oh, good grief, where is it in here? A book that I did not ever think I would pick up, and one that I arguably never actually planned to read. That is Perfume by Patrick, I'm going to butcher that last name. Is it Suskind? Suskind? Because I'm definitely not going to say it's Suskind, because that would be a very funny name. Ebook was pretty cheap recently, and the audiobook was free with the Plus catalog, so I decided, fine, I'll go ahead and pick up the collection, or rather pick up the book, even though I don't really want to read it right now. But I think it would make a couple friends happy if I did. Then I also picked up the novella Dreams of Fire by Shauna Lawless, a novella for her series that I have been collecting on the hardcover. If I could get back to the right page to actually show you. Good grief, there we go. That is the novella. So I don't actually know where this fits in with the series, but I'm excited to try this all pretty soon. Hopefully shortly after it is finished. Well, the trilogy is finished. The last one just needs to come out later this year. Next, I did pick up another book that's similar to Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson. I picked up primarily because the cover looked really, really cool, which the Kindle can't really do justice because it doesn't have color to be able to show the covers. But like, the spear cuts through water, insanely gorgeous cover. Another book that I might pick up a hardcover for just so that I can have the cover on the shelf. I bought this on a whim while it was on sale. I've heard good things from a couple of friends and other people that I follow on Goodreads, so I thought I knew more people who had read it when I bought it, but the cover is just so gorgeous, excessively gorgeous, so I decided to pick it up, and general Goodreads reviews suggest that it might be a book that is for me anyway, so I'm excited to give that a shot at some point. That is the end of the ebook collection side of things. Next up, we are going to get into the audiobook collection side of things. So, like I said, don't worry, I'm almost done. Let me switch over to my desktop screen over here and start showing you. Outlander, the first book, is part of the Audible Plus catalog, so I decided to just add it to my library finally. When I do get around to reading those books, I decided I probably ought to do them immersive, because I've been doing so many things immersive. I decided like there are certain books, certain types of books that I feel like are better that way, or that I want to try that way. So I'm probably going to do it with Outlander. Then I picked up Serpent Daughter, fourth book in the Witchy War series. This was also came around to the Plus catalog, so I picked it up for that reason. Then I have Colossus Rising, the second book in Torth, which I'm not sure when I'll get around to continuing that series. I enjoyed the first book enough, book that I got an arc for, but I'm not entirely sure when I'll continue. This one is significantly shorter than the first book is, though, only 15 hours as opposed to like 24, I think. So maybe I'll fit it in somewhere a little bit at some point. The Crying of Lot 49, which was the monthly classics read-along book for February. So I've already read this one, but I picked up the audiobook because it was part of the Plus catalog, and did that one immersively, and it worked really well for me. Next up, I got The Passenger, Stella Maris, I guess, duology by Cormac McCarthy. These two weren't part of the Plus catalog like the rest of his books were when I added them several months ago, so I decided to just buy them outright because I do want to go through all of Cormac McCarthy's bibliography and do them all immersively at this point. So I'm going to definitely come back to these two probably closer to the end of my journey with his books. I also picked up the Silmarillion, an audiobook, the one by Andy Serkis, because I still really need to continue that book, like really need to. I've been behind on it, and I thought I would get back to it around January. Here it is April, and I still haven't touched it yet. So I figured maybe getting an audiobook and doing it a little bit here and there immersively might help me get through it a little bit quicker. I did pick up the audiobook for Cold Springs by Rick Riordan, similar to Trey Navarre. Back when I grabbed those, the audiobook was part of the Audible Plus catalog, and since I bought the ebook, I figured why not just add the audiobook to my library. And then, just as I mentioned a few minutes ago, Perfume I picked up on the Audible Plus catalog to go along with the very cheap ebook, so I might do that one immersively and fit it in sometime pretty soon, because it is also pretty short, only 9 hours, so who knows, we'll see how things go. Oh, and I'm also going to jump in at the very end of this video here just as a quick edit post-production. I also picked up the Humble Bundle collection of the Asian Saga audiobooks that is currently up for sale right now, I believe, if you want to check that out. I already own them all physically, but I figured if I could get them all audio and maybe do some immersive stuff with these as well, that would also work. But that, as well, is the end of this book haul. Not just the Audible section, that is the end of it entirely. Thank goodness, because I've been recording for 40 minutes, just this one video, so this will probably be about a half hour long when all is said and done. Easily my biggest book haul. It's something like 70-something books when you add it all together, technically speaking. And then, of course, you know, the longest run time for any of my hauls at this point as well, so maybe I'll end up going back to monthly book hauls if this next quarter goes pretty poorly with my resistance to buy ebooks. If I continue to buy a whole bunch of them, I might have to go back to doing monthly. We'll see what happens, but thank you guys for suffering through this video. If you did, I have the feeling this one was absolutely horrendous quality, but if you got to the end of it, I really appreciate you. I'll be back, I think, this Thursday with another Wheel of Time diary video if you've been following me along with those. Otherwise, like I mentioned earlier, I'll have a review next week of Nicole's new book, Murderous Fairies. Excited for you to get to see that. But the week after that, I have another top 10 list that I'm excited for you guys to see as well. So if you stick around, I would be greatly appreciative. I'll see you in the next video.